"Sir, step aside. Now." The TSA officer's voice cut through the hum of the airport terminal, sharp and unyielding. Jamal Carter froze, his boarding pass in one hand, his carry-on slung over his shoulder. The line behind him stalled, travelers craning their necks as two officers flanked him at the gate. The older one, a woman with a tight bun and a badge reading Holt, stared him down, her hand resting on her radio like it was a weapon. "We need to check your bag. You've been flagged." "Flagged for what?" Jamal's tone was calm, measured, but his pulse quickened. He'd been through this before too many times. The weight of a dozen stares pressed into him, the air thick with unspoken assumptions. He was a black man in a suit, traveling first class. And somehow that made him a problem. "Routine security protocol," Holt snapped, her eyes narrowing. "Open the bag, sir, or we'll do it for you." "I'm happy to comply," Jamal said, setting the bag on the table. "But I'd like to know what triggered this. I've already been through screening." Holt didn't answer. Her partner, a younger officer named Ruiz, fumbled with a handheld scanner, avoiding Jamal's gaze. The crowd murmured, phones already out, recording the scene. Jamal caught a glimpse of a woman in a red scarf mid-30s, sharp hide tapping furiously on her screen. "Good," he thought. "Let them see this ID," Holt demanded, her voice clipped. Jamal handed over his driver's license, her fingers brushing it like it might be contaminated. She studied it, then his face, her lips curling slightly. "Traveling." "Alone." "Yes," Jamal said, his jaw tight. "Heading to D.C. for a conference?" "What kind of conference?" Holt's tone dripped with skepticism, as if he'd made it up. "Civil rights law," Jamal said evenly. "I'm a speaker." Ruiz's head snapped up, his eyes widening for a split second. "Wait, he stopped himself, glancing at Concept, Holt, who shot him a look that could cut glass. Jamal caught the hesitation, the flicker of recognition. He'd seen it before, someone spotting him from a news clip, a TED Talk, or that viral speech in Chicago last year. He was Jamal Carter, the advocate who'd taken on police unions and won. The man who'd marched with thousands and argued before judges. But to Holt, he was just another threat to be contained. "Open the bag," Holt repeated, ignoring Ruiz. Jamal unzipped it slowly, revealing neatly folded clothes, a laptop, and a stack of legal journals. Holt rifled through them, tossing a journal aside like it was trash. "What's this?" "Reading material," Jamal said, his voice steady but his hands curling into fists. "For the conference," Holt snorted, pulling out a small metal case. "And this? My glasses," Jamal said. She popped it open, inspected the lenses like they might hide a bomb, then dropped it back in the bag. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a mix of impatience and unease. The woman in the red scarf was still filming, her expression fierce. "Ma'am, please step back," Ruiz said to her, his voice uncertain. She didn't budge. "I'm just standing here," she replied, her phone steady. "This is a public space." Holt's head whipped around. "Turn that off, or you're next." Jamal's mind raced. He could de-escalate, comply, and get on his flight tour pushback, and risk worse. He'd been here before, 16 years ago, a kid stopped by cops for looking suspicious in his own neighborhood. That night had lit a fire in him, sent him to law school, turned him into the man who'd spent a decade fighting for others. But right now, he was just a passenger, stripped of context, reduced to a stereotype. "Officer Holt," Jamal said, locking eyes with her, "I've done nothing wrong. I'm asking for clarity on why I'm being detained." Her face hardened. "You don't get to ask questions. You get to follow orders." Ruiz shifted uncomfortably, his hand hovering over his radio. "Maybe we should check the system again." Holt cut him off, thrusting Jamal's ID at him. "Run it." Ruiz hesitated, then typed into a tablet. His brow furrowed, and he leaned closer to the screen. Ma'am, it's him, Jamal Carter, the guy from I don't care who he is," Holt snapped, but her voice faltered. Just for a moment, the air shifted, the weight of Ruiz's words sinking in. Jamal stood taller, his calm unshaken, but inside. He was ready to fight not with fists, but with the truth. Ruiz's words hung in the silence, his tablet screen glowing with Jamal Carter's name. Holt's jaw tightened, but she waved him off, motioning for Jamal to follow. "Move holding room now." Jamal grabbed his bag, the weight of the crowd's stares following him as he walked behind Holt and Ruiz through a side door. The door slammed shut, cutting off the murmurs of the terminal. Holt pointed to a metal chair. "Sit." Jamal complied, setting his bag at his feet. Holt stood across from him, arms crossed, her badge glinting under the harsh light. Ruiz lingered. Near the door, his fingers twitching over his radio. "ID again," Holt said, her voice sharp. "I gave it to you already," Jamal said, calm but firm. He slid his driver's license across the table. Holt snatched it, flipping it over as if expecting a hidden flaw. "Traveling to D.C., you said?" "For a conference," she leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "What's a civil rights lawyer doing flying first class? That's a lot of money for someone who stirs up trouble." Jamal's fingers curled briefly, but he kept his voice steady. "I'm speaking at a summit. My work pays for the ticket, same as anyone else." Holt smirked, tossing the ID back. "Work, right? Protests, lawsuits, making life hard for people, doing their jobs, that kind of work?" 16 years ago, Jamal stood on a cracked sidewalk, hands raised, a cop's flashlight blinding him. "Why you out here, kid?" the officer had barked. Jamal, barely 17, had been walking home from a library, his backpack stuffed with books. The cop didn't care. That night, cuffed for an hour on a curb, Jamal learned what it meant to be seen as a threat. It drove him to law school, to courtrooms, to the steps of city halls where he demanded justice for others. "I advocate for fairness," Jamal said now, meeting Holt's gaze. "If that makes your job harder, maybe that's a sign." Holt's face reddened. "Don't lecture me. You're here because you were flagged. Suspicious behavior? That's my job, keeping people safe." "Suspicious how?" Jamal pressed. "I walked through security, scanned my boarding pass, and stood in line." "What's the issue?" Holt didn't answer. She pulled out a notepad, scribbling something, her pen digging into the paper. Ruiz shifted, glancing at the tablet again. "Ma'am, his record's clean. Nothing in the system." "Then run it again," Holt snapped. "People like him always have something." Jamal remembered the courtroom in Chicago 3 years ago. He'd stood before a judge, representing a family whose son was killed by police. The officers' defense? He looked dangerous. No evidence, just a hunch. Jamal won that case, exposing a pattern of profiling that cost the city millions. The victory was hollow. The boy was still gone, but it fueled him to keep fighting. "People like me," Jamal repeated, his voice low. "Care to clarify?" Holt's pen stopped. She looked up, her lips a thin line. "You know what I mean. Always pushing, always complaining, making problems where there aren't any." Ruiz coughed, stepping forward. "Ma'am, maybe we should." "Stay out of it," Holt cut him off, her eyes locked on Jamal. "Why do you need to go to D.C.? What's so important about this conference?" "It's about reforming systems that target the innocent," Jamal said. "Systems that let bias override facts. Sound familiar?" Holt's knuckles whitened around her pen. She remembered the news 2 years back. Her brother Mike, a cop, fired after a protest turned ugly. He'd been caught on video shoving a kid to the ground. The activist leading the march, Jamal Carter, had pushed for accountability. Mike lost his badge, his pension, his pride. Holt blamed Carter, men like him, for ruining good officers. She'd seen his name on the passenger list today and felt her blood boil. "You think you're above the rules," Holt said, her voice low, venomous. "You're not. You're just another guy in a suit who thinks he can talk his way out." Jamal leaned forward, his hands flat on the table. "I'm not talking my way out. I'm asking you to do your job right. Check my bag, my ID, my record. You've got nothing." "Let me go." Holt stood, pacing a step. "We're not done. You don't get to call the shots." Jamal's mind flashed to his mentor, Professor Ellis, years ago in law school. "They'll try to break you," Ellis had said. "Not with fists, but with power. Stay sharp, stay calm, and wait for your moment." Jamal had lived by that, outlasting every attempt to silence him. He glanced at Ruiz, who was staring at the floor. "Officer Ruiz," Jamal said, "you know I'm clean. You saw the system. What's the holdup?" Ruiz hesitated, then looked at Holt. "He's right, ma'am. No flags, no priors. He's who he says he is." Holt spun on him. "I said run it again." Jamal exhaled slowly, calculating. Holt's bias was personal, not just procedural. He could keep pushing, risk escalation, or wait for an opening. He thought of the woman with the phone, the one in the red scarf. If she was still out there filming, posting, this wasn't just his fight anymore. He'd learned long ago truth needed witnesses. "Fine," Jamal said, sitting back. "Run it as many times as you want, but you're wasting your time, not mine." Holt's eyes flashed, but she said nothing, turning to the tablet. Jamal watched her, his mind already working. He'd been profiled before, humiliated before, but he'd never lost, not when he had the truth. And this time, he sensed the truth was about to break free. Jamal sat back in the metal chair, his eyes fixed on Holt as she tapped the tablet, her fingers sharp with purpose. "Run it as many times as you want," he said, "but you're wasting your time, not mine." Holt's lips tightened, but before she could respond, a faint buzz cut through the silence. Ruiz glanced at his radio, then at the door. "Ma'am, we've got a situation outside." Holt's head snapped up. "What kind of situation?" "Passengers. One's filming, refusing to stop," Ruiz said, his voice low. "She's got a crowd." Holt's eyes narrowed. "Handle it now?" Ruiz hesitated, then stepped out, leaving Jamal and Holt alone. Jamal's mind raced. The woman in the red scarf, he'd seen her recording at the gate. If she was still out there, this could shift everything. He kept his face neutral, watching Holt scribble on her notepad, her movements jerky. Outside, Sarah Ellis adjusted her grip on her phone, the camera steady as she recorded the closed door to the holding room. A freelance journalist with a knack for spotting injustice, she'd been at the gate when Holt singled out Jamal. Something about the scene, Holt's sharp tone, the way she'd dismissed Jamal's explanations, had set Sarah's instincts on edge. She'd started filming the moment Holt grabbed Jamal's ID, her lens catching every detail. Now, standing among a growing cluster of passengers, she kept her phone raised, ignoring Ruiz's approach. "Ma'am, you need to stop recording," Ruiz said, his hand outstretched. "This is a security area. It's a public terminal," Sarah shot back, her voice firm. "I'm not breaking any laws." A man in a business suit nearby nodded. "She's right. What's going on with that guy? He didn't do anything." Ruiz's jaw tightened. "It's procedure." "Step back, please." Sarah didn't budge. Her phone captured Ruiz's unease, the crowd's murmurs, the door behind which Jamal was held. She'd recognized Jamal the moment Holt pulled him aside. Jamal Carter, the advocate, who'd taken on Chicago's police department 3 years ago. Sarah had been in the courtroom that day, a young reporter covering the case. Jamal stood at the podium, his voice steady as he presented evidence of discriminatory policing. Traffic stops targeting black drivers, arrests with no cause. His work forced the city to pay millions and retrain its force. Sarah's article on the case had been her first big break. Procedure doesn't mean targeting someone for no reason, Sarah said now, her eyes locked on Ruiz. "What's his name?" "The man you're holding?" Ruiz shifted, glancing at the crowd. "That's not your concern. It's everyone's concern," Sarah said, her phone still rolling. "You're detaining a man who's done nothing wrong. I saw it. We all did," a woman with a toddler chimed in. "He was just standing in line. What's the problem?" Ruiz's radio crackled, Holt's voice cutting through. "Get her phone, Ruiz, now." Sarah stepped back, her free hand raised. "Touch me. And it's assault. This is going online." Jamal's voice echoed in Sarah's memory from a speech he'd given last year at a rally. "The system doesn't change unless we expose it," he'd said, thousands cheering. "Every camera, every voice, every truth matters." Sarah had quoted him in a piece that went viral, her words amplifying his call for accountability. Now, she was living it. Inside, Holt leaned across the table, her face inches from Jamal's. "Your little fan club out there won't help you," she said, her voice low. "You're still here until I say otherwise." Jamal met her gaze, unflinching. "You're holding me on nothing. No evidence, no charge. You know it." Holt smirked. "I know people like you. Always got an angle, always playing the victim." Jamal remembered the faces in that Chicago courtroom, mothers, brothers, daughters, all waiting for justice. He'd fought for them, not for fame, but because he'd been that kid on the curb, cuffed for existing. Every case, every protest was personal. He'd learned to wait, to watch for cracks in the system's armor. Holt's anger was a crack. "You don't know me," Jamal said, his voice steady, "but you're about to." Outside, Sarah uploaded the video to her social media, her fingers flying over the screen. TSA targeting black passenger at JFK. She typed, "This is Jamal Carter, civil rights advocate. Share this." She hit send, the post already gaining traction. Comments flooded in. "This is wrong. Not again. Who's Jamal Carter?" Ruiz's radio crackled again. "Ruiz report," Holt barked. "She's not stopping," Ruiz said, his voice strained. "It's online now. People are talking." Holt's pen froze. She turned to Jamal, her eyes blazing. "You planned this, didn't you? Get your people to make a scene." Jamal shook his head. "I didn't plan anything, but if people are watching, that's on you." Sarah's post was climbing, retweets piling up. She remembered interviewing Jamal after the Chicago case, his words calm but fierce. Justice isn't given. It's demanded. She'd admired his resolve, his ability to turn pain into purpose. Now, she was part of his fight. The crowd outside grew louder. Phones out, voices rising. "Let him go," someone shouted. Ruiz looked at Sarah, then at the door, his hand hovering over his radio. Sarah's video was live, the world watching, and Holt's control was slipping. The crowd's shouts filtered through the door. "Him go." As Holt's radio crackled with Ruiz's voice, "She's not stopping. It's online now. People are talking." Holt slammed the radio down, her eyes burning into Jamal. "You planned this, didn't you? Get your people to make a scene." Jamal shook his head, his voice calm. "I didn't plan anything, but if people are watching, that's on you." Holt's lips curled, but before she could speak, Ruiz burst back in, his face flushed. "Ma'am, it's getting worse. That woman's videos got thousands of views already. They're calling it profiling. Holt snapped, spinning to face him. "I'm doing my job." He was flagged. "You saw the system." Ruiz hesitated, glancing at Jamal, then back at Holt. "The system's clear, ma'am. He's got no record, no flags. Why are we still holding him?" Holt's hands clenched. "Because I say so. You questioning me, Ruiz? I'm saying—" "It doesn't add up," Ruiz said, his voice low but firm. "He's a lawyer, a big name. You saw his ID. This could blow up." Holt stepped closer to Ruiz, her voice a hiss. "You think I don't know who he is? People like him ruin lives, stir up trouble, and walk away clean. Not this time. 2 years ago, Holt watched her brother Mike spiral. A cop with 20 years on the force, he'd been fired after a protest in Baltimore turned chaotic. Mike had shoved a teenager during a march led by Jamal Carter, who'd called for accountability. The viral video of Mike's actions ended his career. Holt sat with him night after night, hearing his bitterness, his shame. "Carter destroyed me," Mike had said, his voice hollow. Holt blamed Jamal, saw him as the face of every activist who'd torn her family apart. Jamal caught the edge in Holt's voice, the personal venom. "This isn't about security, is it?" he said, leaning forward. "You know my name? You've got a problem with me." Holt's eyes flashed. "Don't flatter yourself. You're just another passenger." "Then let me go," Jamal said. "You've got no cause, no evidence. You're holding me because of who I am." Ruiz shifted, his gaze darting between them. "Ma'am, he's right. The crowd's growing. If we don't act, this'll be national news." Holt rounded on him. "You think I care about a few phones? My brother lost everything because of people like him. Good men, good cops, dragged through the mud." Jamal's jaw tightened, but he stayed composed. "Your brother's choices aren't my fault. I fight for justice, not revenge." Holt's face twisted. "Justice? You call ruining lives justice?" Ruiz stepped forward, his voice urgent. "Ma'am, we need to de-escalate now." Holt ignored him, her focus locked on Jamal. "You're not walking away clean this time." Jamal met her stare, unflinching. "I already am." Jamal met Holt's stare, unflinching. "I already am." Holt's eyes blazed, but before she could respond, Ruiz's radio crackled. "Officer Ruiz, report to the gate." "Who authorized that?" Ruiz shrugged, uneasy. "It's his attorney, ma'am. She's got documents." Outside, Sarah's phone buzzed with notifications. Her video had hit 10,000 views in minutes. Comments poured in. "This is racial profiling. That's Jamal Carter, the civil rights guy. The crowd at the gate swelled, passengers chanting, phones raised. Sarah kept filming, capturing every moment. The door swung open, and a woman in a sharp blazer strode in. Lila Grant, Jamal's lawyer. She clutched a folder, her voice crisp. "I'm here for my client, Jamal Carter. Release him immediately." Holt bristled. "He's detained for security reasons." Lila didn't flinch. "Show me the evidence. You've got no grounds." She slapped the folder on the table, revealing Jamal's travel itinerary, conference invite, and a printout of his Wikipedia page. "This is Jamal Carter, civil rights advocate, invited to speak in D.C. You're holding him on nothing." Ruiz stared at the documents, then at Holt. "Ma'am, this checks out." "He's who?" he sat. Holt snatched the folder, flipping through it. Her jaw tightened as she read Jamal's credentials: landmark cases, televised speeches, awards. "This doesn't change anything," she said, her voice sharp. "He was flagged for what? You've searched his bag, run his ID. You've got no cause. This is harassment." Sarah's video played on her phone, now streaming live. Holt's words from earlier: "People like him always have something," echoed online, fueling. Outrage, the crowd's chants grew louder, audible through the door. Jamal spoke, his voice steady. "You know the truth, Officer Holt. Let me go." Ruiz shifted, his voice low. "Ma'am, the video's everywhere. We can't keep this up." Holt's hand shook, but she doubled down. "I'm not done here." Lila stepped forward. "You are? Release him, or I'll file a federal complaint by tonight." Jamal stood, his gaze locked on Holt. "The world's watching. Your call." Holt's face twitched, her narrative crumbling under the weight of evidence and scrutiny. Jamal stood, his gaze locked on Holt. "The world's watching. Your call." Holt's hands gripped the table, her knuckles white. "You don't get to dictate terms," she said, her voice sharp but unsteady. "You're still detained." Jamal stepped closer, his voice calm but unwavering. "You've got no evidence, no reason. You're holding me because of who I am, not what I've done. That's not justice, it's personal." Holt's eyes flashed. "Personal? You're the one who makes everything personal, dragging good people down with your crusades." Jamal remembered the Baltimore protest, the one that cost Holt's brother his badge. He'd led the march, demanding accountability after a string of brutal arrests. The crowd had chanted his name, but he'd focused on the families, their pain driving him. He hadn't known Mike Holt, hadn't targeted him, only the system that shielded him. Now, facing Karen Holt, he saw the same system in her defiance. "You're talking about your brother," Jamal said, his tone measured. "I didn't ruin him. He made a choice. You're making one now. Let it go." Holt flinched, her face twisting. "You don't know what you cost him, what you cost us." Ruiz shifted, his radio crackling with an urgent voice. "Ma'am, airport management's here. They want a report." "The video's on news outlets now." Lila, standing by the door, folded her arms. "You're out of time, officer. Release my client, or this becomes a lawsuit." Holt's gaze darted to Ruiz, then back to Jamal. "You think you're untouchable because you've got a lawyer in a crowd." "No," Jamal said. "I'm untouchable because I'm right. You profiled me, ignored the truth, and now it's public. You can't hide from that." He thought of his first case, a teenager wrongfully arrested, his mother sobbing in court. Jamal had fought for them, exposing the officer's lies. That victory taught him the power of truth, of standing firm. Holt's anger was no different, built on denial. Crumbling under scrutiny, Holt's voice dropped, bitter. "You'll always play the victim, won't you? And you'll always dodge accountability," Jamal replied. "But not today." Ruiz. Radio buzzed again. "Ma'am, they're demanding answers. We need to act." Lila stepped forward, her voice cutting. "You've got 10 minutes before I call the press myself. End this." Holt's shoulders sagged, her defiance cracking. She stared at Jamal, then at the folder of evidence, his credentials, his clean record. The chants outside grew louder, the crowd's voices a rising tide. "Let him go," they shouted, the words carrying through the walls. Jamal picked up his bag, his eyes never leaving Holt's. "It is for you." Holt stepped back, silent, as Ruiz opened the door. Outside, the crowd cheered, phones flashing. Lila guided Jamal through the throng, Sarah still filming nearby. A TSA supervisor approached, her voice clipped. Mr. Carter, we're releasing you. The airport will issue a statement. Jamal nodded, his face composed. Make it count. Within hours, the airport's apology hit social media, admitting procedural errors and announcing suspension pending review. Sarah's video, now viral with millions of views, fueled demands for reform. At a makeshift press conference, Jamal faced reporters, his voice steady. This wasn't just about me. It's about a system that targets people for who they are. We need accountability, not excuses. He recalled his first protest, chanting for justice at 20, his mother's proud smile. Every fight since had built to this truth breaking through. Jamal boarded his flight, his bag stowed, his resolve firm. As the plane taxied, he glanced at his phone. Seeing Sarah's post, Jamal Carter walks free. The fight continues. He exhaled, ready for the next battle.